That was Forever Jones. He wants it all. It's pretty safe. It's pretty safe. It still uses God, but you know, there's a little differentiation there where it says let go of all of your idols. I was like, I think I can keep this song, although God is still the title, you know, but all right. There's a portion here once we get almost through Oahspe where it begins to talk about there will come a day where even though people are using all these multiple terms, that they will be referring directly to the Creator. But some people still don't know that there's a difference between terms at the moment. So, I don't know, I've chosen to keep that song. All right, y'all. Happy Tuesday. It is December the 27th, 2022. Y'all, we almost in the, according to the Gregorian calendar, the new year. Almost. We almost in January. We got a few days. All right. It is December the 27th, 2022, day 299 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. Another 4-year consecutive day count. Day 1318. Today we're going to pick back up with chapter 14 of the book of Apollo. We'll probably go ahead and finish these last 2 chapters. I know I said that yesterday, but then I realized there was a chapter 15. So the last 2 chapters, 14 and 15. 14 and 15. And then we'll read a little bit more of Feel God to the Spirit World. All right, y'all. Vinette, shalom, Elijah, peace and blessings. Prince, shalom, shalom. Nazarene is seen, Grand Rising, family lamb. Kendra, shalom, shalom. You know what? I was reading something yesterday, Kendra, and I was thinking about you in our conversation that we had. And I think I'm going to post it today. I think I'm going to post it on Facebook and in the community section. You'll see. It'll be this nice little, it's going to be this this portion from something that I read. I'm going to kind of copy it. And paste it. I probably put like a picture or something, you know. A lot of times people don't, well, at least I notice on Facebook, people don't normally read blurbs of stuff unless you put a picture with it, right? So sometimes you gotta find a cute little picture or maybe a family picture or something, post the picture, then post the message with the picture, right? It's weird. I did a little bit of, what do you want to call that? I did some data gathering, right? Not that I wanted them really to look at the picture, but I figured the picture is something nice to look at when you're trying to tell a story, right? So if you're just trying to tell a story, you really want to get a point across to somebody, if you just post it there, I mean, you got your real OGs that read books without pictures, right? Most people, they need something to break up the monotony. That's why I like to add little emojis and stuff all through. Like, what you got going on here? At least, and draw your attention, right? I'm trying to draw people in to at least consider a message, right? So that's the method behind my madness sometimes with the emojis, because it looks fun, right? Most people are drawing the cartoons. I just learned this all in my marketing and all this stuff. So, but I found out I get a little bit better engagement if there's a picture added, right? Because the story will draw them in a little bit. So I'm going to put that together. I'm going to share it with you. You'll see what I'm talking about once you read it. Just kind of look out for that today. It'll be a little while because I got a deadline to meet, but I've been thinking about it. I was going to go ahead and post this. It's really, really good. It's from the Sudden Understanding book that I have, where it's another one of those books that strokes that third eye, so to speak. But I thought it was really, really good. I sat there and I reread it like 4 different times, just meditating on what it said. I'm like, oh, I got to share this with somebody. So I'll share that, but I got a deadline to meet by 2 p.m. I got a contract paperwork to do. So, but I should be looking for that, y'all, later today. Set apart, Iman, peace, love, light, and power, family. Yes, amen. Hannah, Grand Rising. Natsar Yahoo, Grand Rising. Brian Job, what you done deleted, man? I see it. I'm able to undelete. I'll go ahead and delete it back. I'm nosy. I thought it might have been a typo or something. But I don't see why you would have deleted that. Okay. Oh, you put it back. Anyway, I don't know. Fritz, shalom, dawn, peace, love, and light. All right, y'all. And everybody else here already hanging out in the background of YouTube and Facebook. Top of the day to you. All right, y'all, let's get started. Oh, I got a little bit of good news. That probably don't make y'all know, never mind. But I did find out some more details on my dad's side of the family. Going in ancestry, got a huge family lineage. But I haven't been able to fill in anything past actually my dad. My dad's dad. Everything just kind of went dark after that. So it seems like there's some other people on my dad's side of the family that's filling out stuff. So bronze yoke, I haven't, well, I glanced at it a little bit and I sent somebody a message and I was wondering if it was somebody from your side of the family because they reached out to me. I'm like, okay, I got to connect the names. But by the time I went, I noticed it about 12 noon yesterday. And I just glanced in it real quick. And then I got sidetracked again doing some of the John Lant stuff. And I didn't go back to it again until like late last night. So I sent a message back because I can't yet view the person who sent me a message to kind of expand that that family tree to connect everything. So we'll see. We get down to it. We might just be related, Bronze Yogi. This is really interesting. But yeah, and we're making a little bit of headway on some other things. So I'm gonna call and talk to my siblings today, and my mama. I don't know if she came in. Sometimes she be hanging out in the background. But anyway, I'll share more details, once I talk to them and we go through all of this stuff. That was really, really exciting yesterday, right? Merry Christmas. Listen, look, what's crazy was when Cosmo was on last night, he started talking about Gautama, right? But what's crazy when he started talking about it, I just tapped my husband. I was like, yo, he talking about Guatemala, right? And then Jamia came in and she said, Pamela, Guatemala. Like me and my husband, we heard Cosmo. Then I said to him, I was like, yo, then Jamia remembered the dream that I told you. Because yesterday I was in the closet. We was getting ready to go. And all of a sudden, while I was thinking about John Lant and running these details through my head and this different avenue we're going behind, the dream that I had while I was active duty military out to sea about Guatemala just flashed before my eyes again. Like at different times when I'm thinking about different things, it just flashed before my eyes, right? So while coming across Oahspe and learning about the name of the original name of the Americas, Gautama, that was the dream ever so often flashes before me, but I think at key points I realized the dream just out of nowhere just flashed about. I'm like, oh shoot, and I had this real quick flash of the entire dream, and I'm like, oh, okay, what was I just thinking about? And I gotta stop. What was I thinking about? Pinpointing the clues, thinking about Oahspe. Okay, all right, it's something here. Then I looked into it. I'm like, wait, so Guatemala, I was going through the different pronunciations and watching Curimeo's channel when he started talking about it a couple years ago. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting, but then the dream flashed before me again, not putting two and two together. I was doing wrong pronunciation, right? But that's how at that time, I would not have recognized it unless I heard it that way, right? So that's how it stuck with me, Guatemala, right? In the dream, the captain came over to 1NC, which was the representative of Creator, Pamela. I want you to go down to Guatemala and turn the lights on for the people. I'm like, and in the dream, I reshare the dream again real quick. I was out to sea, right? Because I was out to sea when I was 19 years old, my early 20s and everything, right? So out there, had the dream that I was out there and I was walking through the ship. I was on an aircraft carrier, the Theodore Roosevelt. And I came down to the hangar bay. The hangar bay is like the flight deck where the birds, where the jets, the airplanes, they fly in there and they take off from there. They have an exact It's an exact replica of the flight deck, but it's the hangar bay, right? Same length, same size, everything that's on the flight deck is on the hangar bay. And a lot of times they'll bring the airplanes down to the hangar bay to perform maintenance on them down there, right? Same amount of space. So I was walking through the hangar bay, and on both sides of the aircraft carrier, you have the opening where you can see out. And I happened to turn to if the forward part of the ship is pointing this way. I was walking from the end side of the ship, the back side of the ship to the front side of the ship. And once you get halfway through, there's the opening on the two sides. As I was walking, I turned to, I looked out both sides, and I turned and I went and I looked out the left side, and I heard the captain come over to 1MC, and he said, Pam, I need you to go down. Oh, let me show you. Okay, so when I looked out, I could see that we had stopped for a second. And as I looked out, I could see the horizon of the land that we were about to approach, because we was going into port. We were still out a little ways, and we was just stopped. But I could see the outline of the land that we was going into over the horizon. And the sun, it seemed like either the sun was, the sun was going down. You know what? That makes a big bit of a difference. I was just about to say, I'm not sure if the sun was going down or if it was rising. Kind of like, unless you're already aware of time. Say if you was kidnapped or something and you broke free through like at dawn, you wouldn't be able to tell whether you were going into night or whether you were going into day, because it looks the same at two different times during the day. So time would have to progress just a little bit more to see, okay, are we going into the night, or is the sun rising? Is this a new day, right? Just thinking about the dream, when we turning to the left would be, where was that? I think that would be, listen, according to my understanding, right? That would have been the west. The sun would have been going down, right? Which makes sense, because if I would have looked out the right side, that would have been the east. The east rises, meaning morning. But based on all of what we know now, cosmon, air, all these different things, me facing the left, seeing the horizon, the sun would have been going down, right? Meaning kind of like we're progressing throughout the day, right? It's a good bit of day that's been passed, right? So that I just caught on to that just now while retelling it again. So when I looked out there, I heard them come over to 1MC, or the loudspeaker for the ship. I said, Pam, I need you to go down to Guatemala and help cut the lights on for the people. And I looked and I'm like, and I made this face in my dream. And I said, but there's lions and tigers and bears out there. Remember, I'm this big, scary young girl, right? Scared just about everything. But I was like, but there's lions and tigers and bears down there. He was like, don't worry about it. You're going to be completely protected. But I need you to go down there to help cut the lights on for the people. I was like, okay. And he said Guatemala. I need you to go down to Guatemala and help cut the lights on for the people. So that's what began my search for Guatemala. Okay, why would I go to, what do I know about Guatemala? So I'm looking up Guatemala. Even this recent year, the dream coming back, so I'm like, Guatemala. Why would Guatemala? I've never been to South America, so that's when, it's about a couple years ago. When I said I never going down there, that's when I came across the video by Corinne Mayo, because I was more active in YouTube, actually doing searches and stuff when I came across him. And so his video said Guatemala. It had a couple different spellings of it, but he started with Guatemala and it ended with I was pronouncing it Guatemala, but he was pronouncing it another way, but it was the same exact spelling in Oahspe. I'm like, wait a minute, this might be a clue. And so I pulled it up. I'm like, oh, snap. So could it not have been talking about Guatemala per se, the small little place Guatemala in South America? Could it have really been referring to, because I was off, I could see it, we was out to sea, right? Not like in town looking at the entrance of a city, because sometimes I've had dreams like this, but we was back and I was looking at the horizon of a landmass, saying I need you to go down to Guatemala, right? So I'm going through the research, looking at this, going back to Oahspe. I'm like, were you referring to America? Like America and South America? And so it's just kind of like, I didn't hear anything. Sometimes I ask questions and I like immediately hear the answer, right? And it's just quiet. And I'm like, so you just gonna ignore me now? And so looking at this, I'm like, oh snap, wait a minute. So what if it was, I'm like, but what does that even look like, right? Still not even putting together the bits and pieces of me reading through it. And I hadn't started Oahspe. No, I had started Oahspe when I seen Curry Mayo. I'm probably saying his name wrong. But I think most of y'all know who I'm talking about. I'm gonna find that video. I'm gonna share it again. Share Guatemala video. Curry Mayo. It's Kurimeo. I think I spelled it right. Curry Mayo. And it's the second part of his name. I want to say Oahu, but it's close to like a Hawaiian island. Could have that wrong. But y'all see when I post it, right? And so I'm putting these little pieces together and stuff. I was like, could this mean that? You know, so I'm still in the understanding all of this and what this means. And then I started thinking about when that started hitting me in the closet yesterday while I was thinking about stuff. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if the search for the John Lant plates go cut on the lights for the people. Could it be that the plates were hidden, actual real plates hidden to this time? Could this be the light? You know, I just interchangeably sometimes throw stuff in trying to figure out which piece fits here. What light? What are you talking about? Right? So I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, I don't know, but you don't seem to be, you just get quiet on me when I ask particular questions. I was like, okay, that means keep searching or something, right? And so then when I walked out, I was talking to my husband about it. My aunt brought me a candle over. And so I was lighting. I was like, let me go ahead and light this while we're getting dressed. I was like, I want to smell this. So I turned around. It was sitting on my nightstand. I picked it up. But as I was lighting the candle, it's crazy, right? Look, all of this is a piece of the puzzle. My husband, he was like, another clue. Y'all was talking about National Treasure. I started busting up laughing when my husband said that. I was like, that's funny because the group started talking about National Treasure. If y'all ever seen National Treasure, it seemed like he was just on a non-ending, it was like he was being sent off all the time. Oahu. Kurimeo Oahu. Yeah, I probably still said it wrong. I don't know. I gotta listen to him say his own name. But I started laughing because somebody mentioned National Treasure. And I was like, that's funny. They just mentioned National Treasure. He said, that's what it seems like. Because we don't really know for real, yet we're still searching because we got this feeling. You know, he said, now I don't know if that's crazy or not. I said, me either. But sometimes a gut feeling really don't lead us wrong, right? So I lit the candle, and it's funny, when I lit the candle, my dad came to me. And I didn't say he came to me, but I started thinking about my dad, right? And when I turned around, and I just kind of like smiled, but when I turned around, I noticed what was on the TV was the black and white versions of the Three Stooges. And that was one of my dad's favorite shows, right? The Three Stooges, we used to watch it all the time growing up. And I'm like, how interesting that would be on when I go to light the candle and the Three Stooges is on. But what's crazy is, and I say that's crazy because I think it's a part of this whole unraveling of stuff, right? And I know my dad probably has nothing to do with John Lant, but while I was, so I had that thought about my dad. I was like, that's interesting, right? And then in the chat, Selah posted that Woodson, did I say Woodson? I may have said his name wrong, but he made a mention about some information that he found on Ancestry for John Lant, and Jamil asked for it. And so I got it, and I was researching and everything, but it took me back because I already have an Ancestry account. I just went ahead and reactivated it. But it was interesting because when I reactivated, what was showing was that I had new clues, and I haven't logged in Ancestry in about a year or so, right? Because I just came to a dead end. It's like, we got to look at other avenues. I just kind of left it alone. But when I came back, I had like 4 different clues. It's just, if anybody has ever had an account, when other people get in there over time and they start putting their tree together, the software it'll recognize when you're putting in some of the same details from different backgrounds backgrounds or whatever, and it'll be a hint. Hey, is this the same person that you have in your family tree? Here. What was crazy was all 4 of the hints actually did pertain to my father, right? So I'm like, holy crap. I wonder if that's why this morning when I lit the candle, I had a thought about him and turned around, and then they mentioned that if all of that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have even went to Ancestry. If Selah hadn't even mentioned that, where I found new clues on my very own father. I'm like, oh, snap, right? So I sent a message, and I'm going to call today because it was really, really late. But there's like a number posted, and I'm going to just kind of call. But anyway, that probably seemed like it don't go together, but it led me to some other stuff about John Lant, right? So, but that's where we're going to pause at today because I'm researching some of this stuff. So, yeah, confirmation, right? Key. Hey, girl, hey. All right, y'all, let's get started. Great Spirit. Shalom, peace, and blessings to my friends in the UK. All right, y'all, and everybody else here hanging out in the background already. Supreme Bright Other. Shalom, shalom. Okay, so that's enough of that. I'll update the group on some of the stuff here. I'm gonna share with y'all what I got, but I need to verify some things before I get too super excited, right? So I'll share with y'all after I make some phone contacts and stuff, and I share with y'all what I got, right? Okay. So chapter 14, the Book of Apollo from the so-called John Lant plates. It will be on page 98 of the PDF. 98 of the page, the written 98 down at the bottom, and at the top is page 10, right? And chapter 14 begins just a little bit past the halfway point. All right, so it starts from the light of the throne. Yeah, and I think there is some stuff missing here. I could just look at it and tell that there's definitely that's not in here, that's in here. All right, so we're still trying to figure this out. Like I said, this is probably most likely based on the new information we got. What we have here, while we're calling it the so-called John Lant plates, it's the rewritten manuscript of the original manuscript that was typed out, which would explain some of the notes in here, which would seem like they would come at a later time from when the overshadowing actually happened, right? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. J, remember J is shortened. It's Jehovah, fully spelled out in the lowest edition and other editions, but here it's shortened to J, J-E-H. J spake from the light of the throne of God, saying, Hear, O ye counselors of heaven. Yeah, they took out, hear the words of your creator, or they added that in there. Yeah, just little small things so far. Just spake from the light of the throne of God, saying, Hear, O ye counselors of heaven. They spin and weave and make clothes. They learn in the places of learning. Neither do I condemn them. Yeah, okay. They spin and weave and make clothes. They learn in the places of learning. Neither do I condemn them. But my physicians are tired. My nurses are tired. My teachers are tired. Be wise, O my sons and daughters, who have reformed a beggar by giving to him. What physician preventeth sickness by healing? They bring forth in deformity on the earth, and ye must cure them in heaven. They squat on their hunches on earth, and they squat the same way in heaven, and ye must cure them. Verse 5. Go ye to the root of the matter, O my beloved. Send ye down to the kingdoms of my lords, and say to them, double the number of Ashars, double the Lewis, leave no young man alone, nor young woman. Keep over them day and night, give them visions and dreams of Apollo. For I am concerted in heaven and on earth to remold the forms of the earthborn. Just said, O Gal, make 7 more plateaus for the second resurrection. Okay, they just reworded that sentence a little bit. Out of the idolatry of my son Apollo, will I beautify the inhabitants of the earth, and the cast and mold of men and women shall be a great power. Jealousies will overspread the earth and will rise in the first resurrection. Jealousies will overspread. Okay, there we go. Verse 7. Hold on. Plateaus, wait. Plateaus. No. God and counsel proceed. I done lost my spot. Hold on. I think this is where something was added. I lost my spot. Hold on. All right, jealousies. Let's find jealousies. Jealousies. Go ye to the root of the matter. Hold on. Jealousies will overspread the earth. Okay, jealousies. Ooh. Jealousies. This verse 7. Okay. Jealousies. Make 7 more. Okay, all right. Verse 7. Pick it back up there. Jealousies will overspread the earth and will rise in the first resurrection. Make 7 more plateaus in the second resurrection, and sort the Esians in the hour of birth. Now, it's 2 lines that merge together. Okay. I got to look back and forth to see. Okay, I can see it. God and the council proceed. So God appointed workmen and fulfilled the commandments. Hold on. Oh, they added of Jehovah. Okay. God and the council perceived. Sorry, y'all. The 2 sentences are actually right on top of each other. But you can, if you understand what it says, you can kind of separate them as they're sitting over top of each other. But I still keep messing it up. God and the council perceived, and so God appointed workmen and fulfilled the commandments. And he established 700 tributary kingdoms of the second belonging to God. These sub-kingdoms were provided with sub-gods, second in rank below the lords, of whom there were 10,000 who had direct supervision over mortals, and the lords had every one a sufficiency of guardian angel Ashars and Louis, masters of generations, so that they could direct any required number to such mortals as they chose. That would be verse 10. The lords mostly established their heavenly kingdoms and temples where mortals came to worship. By inspiration, they established spirit chambers near the altars where the prophets sat to learn the decrees of the Lord. Hither the Louis came to receive their appointments over mortals for the purpose of bringing about marriages acceptable before Jehovah. Jamia, shalom, say shalom, shalom. Verse 11, or what would be verse 11? The affairs of the sub-gods were, however, holy with matters in heaven, save when commanded by the lords for special work. And it came to pass that mortals and the affairs of mortals were directed and governed by the decrees of the lower heavens, and these again by the ethereal heavens, which were of Jehovah direct. So verse 13, if you're following along in big blue. So which is short for Jehovah, so changed the forms of the earthborn, but they became worshipers of Apollo, accrediting to one another just perfection in them, according to the form and figure of the flesh. And because of the idolatry of the women for Apollo, their children were born of good flesh and shapely, so that in 400 years the hair on their heads grew long and straight, and men began to have beards. Neither considered any young man any virtue in any woman so important as her form, nor did the young women value any virtue in man so great as well. Neither considered any young man any virtue in a woman so important as her form, nor did young women value any virtue in man so great as a well-molded form. We still got a lot of that going on. When mortals died and their spirits entered the first resurrection, half the labor of the Asaphs, the receiving angels, was accomplished. So God changed the Easian period to 3 years, save for the heirs of cousins, uncles, and aunts, which was left at 5 years. Okay, I get it. All right. All right, let me read it again. And when mortals died and their spirits entered the first resurrection, half the labor of the Asaphs, the receiving angels, was accomplished. So God changed the Easian period to 3 years, save for the heirs of cousins, uncles, and aunts, which was left at 5 years. All right, the last chapter, chapter 15, is 8 verses, and that'll end the book of Apollo. We're 34 minutes. Okay. So perfect was the way of heaven that at the end of 400 years, gods, lords, and sub-gods had ready for the third resurrection of grade 88, 8,500 million souls for Jehovah's harvest. So Apollo sent Adova, division goddess of Reth, and Coke in Ethera, down to the lower heaven to deliver God and his host, and they were this raised up to Ethera. Oh, and they were thus. This says this. Yeah, that's definitely an I. Okay, it makes sense. Thus, okay, they changed it. Okay, and they were thus raised up to Ethera in a sea of fire and made one with Jehovah. In like manner was the next government in the lower heaven and on the earth. And the next deliverance in Dan was 10 million souls, grade 65. In like manner was the next administration, and the deliverance was 10,000 millions, grade 50. And the next administration delivered 10,000 millions, grade 38. So Apollo commanded those to be delivered in the Augean fields of Oath, and Sanach and Orant, for they were unsuited for Ethera. Deliverance 10,000 million of grade 38. Yeah, I say 38 there too. Okay. Maybe I'm missing something. So perfect was the way of heaven that at the end of 400 years, God and his lords and his sub-gods had ready for the third resurrection of grade 88, 8,500 million souls for Jehovah's harvest. Yeah, Jehovah's harvest. Okay. It kind of threw me off a little bit because I thought maybe because it hadn't got, I don't know, but I thought you have to be at least above 50. I didn't catch that the first time. At least above 50 to be harvested from the earth and her heavens. Okay, Apollo sent Adova, division goddess of Reth, and Coke in Ethera, down to the lower heaven to deliver God and his host. And they were thus raised up to Ethera in a sea of fire and made one with Jehovah. In like manner was the next government in the lower heaven and on the earth, and the next deliverance in Dan was 10,000 million souls of grade 65. In like manner was the next administration in the lower heaven and on the earth, and the deliverance was 10,000 million of grade 50. In verse 5 it says, in like manner, and it seems to coincide, it's the same thing. In like manner was administration on the earth and in the lower heaven, and the deliverance was 10,000 million of grade 38. I'm gonna keep reading. Maybe I missed something, but I thought you couldn't graduate until you were at least grade 50 or above, because at grade 38 you're still doing more for yourself than you're doing others, and 50 is an even kill. 50-50, you're doing half for yourself, half for others, right? If you're doing 65% worth, you're doing 65% worth for others, and the difference between 65 and 100 you do for yourself, which will be less than 65. In like manner was the next administration on the earth and in the lower heaven, and the deliverance was 10,000 million of grade 38. So Apollo commanded these to be delivered in the Oahspe fields of, okay, I'm glad I went back and reread that. Okay, they didn't go all the way. Listen. Okay, I'm glad I read it over. All right, it explains it right there. Should have just kept reading. Okay, verse 5. In like manner was the next administration on the earth and in the lower heaven, and the deliverance was 10,000 million of grade 38. So Apollo commanded these to be delivered in the Oahspe fields of Oath, in Sanach and Orant, for they were unsuited for Ethera. Yep. Okay. Let's say that here too. Okay, I must have just zoned out while reading. Okay, well that answers that. In like manner was the next administration in the lower heaven and on the earth, and the deliverance was 16 millions of grade 24. So Apollo commanded them to be delivered in the nebulous straits of Kapowachika for further development. In like manner was the next administration in the lower heaven, but not so on earth. For the kings and queens carried the idolatry too far, and mortals took to destroying ill-formed children and cripples, thus casting the ills of mortality into heaven. So there was no deliverance for the last Dan of Apollo's cycle, and Jehovah received no harvest. Thus ended the cycles of Apollo, being 2,800 years. End of Book of Apollo. Okay, that's interesting. The first time I didn't catch that reading through, and I probably wouldn't have because it was my first time reading through, and I probably did, but I just wasn't putting some of the pieces together yet. So, but it caught me this time, like, wait, 38, they graduated 38, it's supposed to be 50, but if I would have kept reading, it would have said those, they didn't go all the way because they were unsuited to go into Etheria, so they were delivered into Oahspe, and the next ones that were delivered because they also were unsuited were delivered into the nebulous straits of Kapowachika. I know I said that wrong. Matter of fact, when we did this video, I laughed at that name then, and it's actually in the title of that video. That's funny, I remember that. Some things I act silly, and when I get to it again, I remember what I did the last time, and it's, I don't know. I think it's a good point, a good way to remember some stuff, which is why I can remember sometime, most of the times, if I did something funny, or something I thought was funny to myself, and I put it in a title, when I come across it again, it's like a quick reference. Oh, go right here to this video, especially like the Julian Spirits video. Yeah, go there. It's some shenanigans. That was a turning point in my life spiritually. Wow. Had we started Oahspe yet? I think we had probably just started Oahspe. But yeah, all right, beautiful people, that's it for today. That was it. So the next book is, and I got to print it out, so I don't think I printed the next one. Let me go back to the beginning of Apollo, making sure this wasn't a split. It is split. The Lord's third book, right? So I got to print out the Lord's third book, and that's pretty short. That is what, 3 chapters? 3 chapters. So we'll read the Lord's third book tomorrow. I'll read it from the so-called John Lant plates, right? All right. Let's hop over here to the field guide, to the spirit world, and read a little bit more about this possession. All right, we're in chapter 9. We at 42 minutes. Chapter 9 is talking about the possession of Annalise. What was her last name? Annalise Michael. And they did that film, The Exorcism. The Exorcism of Emily Rose was based off of her real life. They said she was the only one that they know, according to the writing of this book, that had died from demonic possession. Right? She died fighting that. It's crazy. I wonder, when you die possessed, like, what part of Hada are you hanging out in? This is interesting. I don't know. Still putting these little pieces together, y'all. Okay, so page 204, and we pause right after Appendix C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to start on line 11 where it says, and then at 16 came the first blackout. So that's where we pick up. All right. And then at 16 came the first blackout, still talking about Annalise. Because remember Appendix C, that was talking about her head trauma, where her possession may have started early in childhood when she had the head trauma. That's why it gave us the reference to Appendix C, because Appendix C was totally dedicated to head traumas and different people and their eventful lives, things that happen in the news, killing people, all kind of crazy stuff. It all happened with a head trauma, right? Tony, shalom, brother. Page 204. And then at 16 came the first blackout. That night in bed, she was pinned down by, quote, a giant force, end quote. A year later came another blackout, then temporary paralysis. And after paralysis, there's an asterisk, and at the bottom, the asterisk says, in Morocco, victims of the Jun, could be of the nun. It's J-N-U-N. J could be silent. Vic will say nun. In Morocco, victims of the nun may experience, quote, complete paralysis of the limbs and face, end quote. Crapazano and Garrison, 1977, page 44. A year later came another blackout, then temporary paralysis. More illnesses followed, and in their aftermath, she became more anxious and withdrawn at the same time that her interest in religion increased. I know that's crazy, right? Yo, we have variously called the door that shields us from psyche's outer realm the dam, the barrier, the threshold, just as Annalise's biographer calls it, quote, the threshold that separates this world from the other, end quote. Once you cross that threshold into, quote, a different reality, end quote, it is all the more difficult, quote, to return to business as usual, end quote. 1981, pages 99 and page 206. The altered state for Annalise brought problems that the reader of this book is already familiar with. Anorexia, for example. Father Renz thought that demons were preventing her from eating anything good. Quote, I was not permitted to eat, end quote. 2 months before her death, she began to refuse food. The pathologist said she died of starvation. The last 2 months of her life, she was also unable to sleep, catching maybe an hour or two or slumber here and there. Also, 1 year before she died, she began having difficulty walking, reminding us of the awkward gait sometimes observed among the obsessed. Obsession, as we have also seen in these chapters, may entail an unnamed dread, an apprehension with no face or definition arising. Obsession, as we have also seen in these chapters, may entail an unnamed dread, an apprehension with no face or definition, arising, no doubt, from the presence of the, quote, uninvited guests, end quote. For Annalise, this took the form of anxiety, depression, and despair, without her knowing the reason for these emotions. All she knew was a, quote, feeling of abject terror, end quote. 1981, page 151. The OC, quote, commands, end quote, nonetheless were clear enough. Quote, I got the command to strip. What in the world is that supposed to mean? I don't hear it. I simply realize that I have to do it. It is a true compulsion, end quote. 1981, page 151. Goodman notes, quote, neither was she able to change the way she was behaving. My will is not my own, she would say over and over again. Someone else is manipulating me. It was that way in the bus. It was that way in the bus, and it has ... Father Alt tells what happened. On the way home, Annalise behaved in a most unseemly way toward Frau Hain. She spoke with a voice like a man's. She simply was not Annalise anymore. These vocalizations, talking very loudly, were frightening and chaotic and much faster than hers, end quote. 1981, pages 35 and 248. Recalling others touched by the darkness who talk, laugh, quote, too loud or too long, end quote. Oh. Let me read the whole sentence again. That was the end of the sentence, but I didn't say it like it was the end of the sentence. These vocalizations, talking very loudly, were frightening and chaotic and much faster than hers. 1981, page 35 and 248. Recalling others touched by the darkness who talk, laugh, too loud or too long. It was again, quote, with a completely altered voice, end quote, 1981, page 73, that she ordered her boyfriend, Peter, out when he came to visit her. It was a mixed bag of disassociative and ghostly manifestations. Annalise was clairvoyant in her last year of life. Quote, she became telepathic, knowing, for instance, who was praying for her in some other town and at what time. She began divining, and the dead visited her, end quote. 1981, page 206. All the while, the ghosts, cold, and molestations would come over her unpredictably. Father Alt would suddenly see, quote, her face change, her eyes darken, and she became absent, end quote, reminding us of the eye-darkening, dilating previously discussed. The attack, Annalise said, felt like, quote, being hurled into a dark pit. My real self sits in a hole inside of myself and has nothing to say about anything, as if someone else was giving the orders, end quote. 1981, page 21. Sheesh. In her fits, she would grunt for hours on end or scream incessantly, loudly and coarsely. This would be followed by trembling and twitching that were then replaced by stiff contortions, even catatonic rigidity, inert for days. Like other victims of possession, her stiffness bore uncanny heaviness. The men found it almost impossible to lift the delicate girl. When she felt an agitated state coming on, she actually asked her family to tie her up to prevent self-injury, self-biting, head-banging, smothering, and the like. But she would also lash out at others, striking blows and kicking, not unlike the spirits in chaos as described in Oahspe. Quote, battling against all who came along, screaming, striking out in an unending nightmare of madness, end quote. Oahspe, Book of Wars, chapter 54, verse 17. And notice when Susan B. Martinez was putting together her book, she was coming across, all of this is like recent activities happening, right? She had I ain't gonna say recently read Oahspe, but she had been studying it for a while. But the cases that she is using in this book, she is referencing back to what she learned reading through Oahspe that's literally describing some of these possessed states from people in the current time, almost verbatim sometimes, right? In different places all over the world, which is why she references the different scriptures from Oahspe and what it says, right? I thought it was just really, really interesting. But she would also lash out at others, striking blows and kicking, not unlike the spirits in chaos as described in Oahspe, quote, battling against all who came along, screaming, striking out in an unending nightmare of madness, end quote. Oahspe, Book of Wars, chapter 54, verse 17. There was also the classic stench of evil hauntings, quote, like rotten eggs, like dung, end quote, a repulsive burning smell, and the air turned cold. In the midst of it, Father Alt felt, quote, as if a negative force was surrounding me. The stench was literally infernal, end quote. 1981, page 55 through page 55 and 46. When assaulted by her unknown oppressors, Annalise felt, quote, a crushing sensation, end quote. The priest even witnessed quarrels among her demons as to, quote, who should get Annalise, end quote, sounding all the day like disputes between MPD altars known to carry on their own conversations and debates. One of Annalise's unseen oppressors would say, quote, come on, let's go, end quote. Quote, no, end quote. Quote, then you leave, end quote. It's a curse word here. No, S-H-I-T, I'm not leaving, end quote. 1981, page 98. Her repertoire included two more of the foremost signs of possession, hyperpraxia and coprolalia. Quote, along with her excitation came muscle power that was close to superhuman. Peter, her boyfriend, saw her take an apple effortlessly, squeeze it with one hand so that the fragments exploded throughout the room. Fast as lightning, she grabbed Roswitha, her sister, and threw her on the floor as if she were a rag doll, end quote. 1981, page 82. As for coprolalia, quote, furious profanity, end quote, came spilling out of the devout girl. Quote, from her mouth, demons rave and curse, end quote. Yes, they were gambling for her body. When the doctor's drugs did not help her, they just taking them drugs like, give me some more. What is that? Percocet? Yes, we like Percocet. And Lee still in the background like, Percocet, this gonna make it worse. No Percocet. But nobody can hear Annalise in the background. They're like, yeah, trying to change their voice. Yes, I'm Percocet, yes. Trying to use her voice. Look. Quote, from her mouth, demons rave and curse, end quote. When the doctor's drugs did not help her, Annalise, her family, and the priest decided on exorcism. After her death, the law, you know what this is? I just, that was funny. It wasn't funny, but, I be silly sometimes. Listen, these exorcisms, it seems like, I ain't gonna say it, I don't know. Sometimes I was thinking about this clip from the series Evil. Remember in the first season, and listen, y'all, I done told y'all to go watch it. When it got to a certain point, I chickened out a little bit. So I ain't finished getting through the first season, right? Look, half of y'all done went ahead and watched it. And Sheba was like, sis, I don't know, I don't do scary. I was like, look, listen, that's why I try to give y'all the little, give you the spoilers ahead of time because it's just a movie. I'm trying to tell Shebrew to watch it, and I done chickened out, and I ain't went back to it yet. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to watch this in the daytime outside of my house. But I really want to see the rest of it. But I'm just like, you know what? It ain't important right now. We'll get some examples from somewhere else. But they remember in there when that black woman was possessed, they were they decided to go ahead and do the exorcism on her. When I read this, I thought about that scene. So it seems to me, you know, in the medical field, and this is no disrespect to the medical field at all, right? Because you got to be able to diagnose. That's what they call it. They're practicing medicine, right? Because they're practicing. You're literally the test subject based on all the information that they've gathered in. Their theory is, now some of the theories are not theories anymore. They're actual, it's solid set in stone laws. Like this is like science now, right? So once they get through the theories and work out all the different stuff, it literally becomes scientific, and we can do this every single time. This way, this is going to happen. Like they done figured it out, right? But some things they're still like testing. And so I was reminded of just now that scene in there. And sometimes the exorcists, they're doing the same thing. They're practicing based on their best observation, all the information that they currently know. And it depends on the person performing the exorcism, what they've already encountered, their level of expertise in dealing with spirits. So you would have like different outcomes. They even got to the point where if what they're chanting, their prayer, rosary, whatever they're using, the holy oil, holy water is not working, when they run out of ideas on things to do, when they hit their threshold of understanding, what start happening? They start lashing out like the demons trying to set the people free, bashing them in the head with the Bible, taking a cross, putting it on their forehead, pressing it down. I mean, beating a person, turning the person body up who's stuck in there like, oh, what is these ninjas doing? I ain't gonna have a body left by the time they get done, right? Because they run out of things to do. Their spiritual perception, their discernment hasn't grown to a level that will help easily unhinge these spirits. And sometimes they don't go easy, like it's a fight. But you should be able, I think, if you're going to go, first of all, you shouldn't be going to exercise no demons if you yourself are not right. Because what's going to happen is, if that spirit is stronger than you, you may get this person free, but now you're going to need help because you're going to be possessed. They're going, oh, it's a new bus here. Let's go, everybody. And this person will be free. Now the priest acting crazy, right? So you got to be really careful. But it shouldn't be that hard. Exorcising demons and getting somebody free, it's literally, it's like the job of a surgeon. It really is. And you really have to know what you're doing. You need to really understand how bad it is. And you might need to have like a little fact-finding session, a little interview to figure out. You may need to, I don't know, somebody as skilled as Oahspe here, right? You just come in, just do a quick observation. Why this false god over here is still running off at the mouth? You try to, reason with him. Come on, homie. Y'all, everybody, let's just go, right? Who are you? Oahspe? I know not. Like, who this dude think he is? Hyping up your crew like, oh, yeah, dude, bruh, this our territory, right? And Oahspe like, okay. He turned his back, hey. Right? So the exorcist should be just as skilled looking at the shenanigans going on with the possession posse, right? And know what steps you have to take to separate them, right? Some of them aren't that skilled yet. And their spiritual discernment still needs to grow by leaps and bounds if they're going to successfully, without harming the body of the possessed person. Like, you really want to be able to bring their body out without being harmed and bring them back in control of their spirit while exercising the other spirits with like minimal damage, right? You don't want to set the person free. Now they got a broke arm, they bleeding, they got a burnt cross in their forehead because you done flipped out, they done lost some teeth because you done got to fighting with the spirit, but forgot this body don't belong to the spirit. Now Annalise gonna have to do something about this body that you done told him. Now you got a lawsuit on your hands for possibly manslaughter if you kill the body while trying to get somebody free. It's just all these things. And but I thought about this when it said this right here. Listen, when the doctor's drugs did not help her, Annalise her family, and the priest decided on exorcism. After her death, the law viciously went after them for negligent homicide, right? Because the law still, they don't care that there's a whole spiritual side to this. They just want to put a body in jail. And according to their laws, this is what happened here. This is severe neglect, right? You should have went to see a psychiatrist. What this woman should not have died during this exorcism, right? Because the law is not, they're not ready to walk in the spiritual principles alongside of fleshly, corporal happenings. You have to be really, really careful, right? And you really have to be at a high level in tune with Creator on how to do this with wisdom and the utmost care, right? To make sure we preserve the body of the person that belongs to the native spirit that's been in abeyance for such a long time, right? And sometimes when they get that body back, the tenants, you know how some people rent houses from people and they tear their property up? That's like bad tenants, right? Bad tenants. They'll come in there, and I don't want to say like Section 8 people, because everybody that gets Section 8 is not bad tenants. But you have that group, and you have some people that's not even on Section 8 government assistance that come in and tear your property up, right? You get it all nice and pretty, the owners of it, but you get bad tenants that come in there, and then when you, all right, you know, I want my property back, it's time to go. They don't want to go. Now they go through trying to tear up everything in your house. They don't care about you. They don't care about this property. They don't care about you going to court suing them, because what you gonna get? I ain't got no money anyway, and what, right? So they're gonna bust out all the windows, pour paint on your floor, gasoline, all this stuff. They might even set it on fire. That's what you got insurance for. If you got property, make sure you got all kinds of insurance, right? And you really need to vet well the tenants you let in your property. But it's the same thing, right? They don't want to leave without a fight. They don't want to just go, right? So when somebody's possessed, it's like bad tenants. And they're not, you gotta give them eviction notices, and they're going to squat in your property, like all of these things. This is what's happening. It's a perfect example of demonic possession. When you got squatters in houses of people that they passed their time, they missing court dates, don't want to pay. Oh, well, because he ain't do this, I ain't doing this, and you ain't getting my money. But you've been a bad tenant. And you have some slumlords, right? But you just got to be really careful, right? Otherwise, people could die that should still be alive because you were not trained well on how to help set them free, right? Lesson. When the doctor's drugs did not help her, Annalise, her family, and the priest decided on exorcism. After her death, the law viciously went after them for negligent homicide. And that's kind of what happened on Evil, right? When they went in to do the exorcism on this black lady, when the lawyer who was working with the exorcism crew, when she became a part of them, she kind of went back into she kind of accepted the job and went back, if I remember correctly, to work for the state in the cases. But then they called for her help. And when she went in, she said, she just kind of ran through her little text. She said, I think you need a psychiatrist here, you know. And the husband was like, well, what do you think? Okay, then after the talking, all right, what you saying sounds feasible. Is she sick or is she possessed? Like, is it something we can help her out with a psychiatrist, or do we really need to set her free from possession? She was demon possessed. She really was, right? I think it could have been handled better than that, but because after she got set free, though, even though the woman didn't die, I believe, if I remember correctly, there was a lawsuit that followed because of what happened during that exorcism, right? It was crazy. Any ideas? Brian said, I want to know that what Catho for real? Why is it probably Catholic priest? Why is it always a Catholic priest and not a Pentecostal preacher? Because they don't play around with the devil. They're preaching in the pulpit, but they don't really want to play around with the devil for real. They leave that to the Catholic priests and stuff, right? So that's why you don't ever see preachers and pulpits going to do exorcisms for real, right? They'll be like, listen, they want to be delivered enough, bring them to the church, let them come down to the altar, bring them on my territory. Listen, being young, I remember me and my sister, oh man, look, y'all got to be careful too, because people that are demon possessed, they'll play games with you. I ain't say they playing games with you, but the spirits will play games with you. Especially, like, they can fake like they've been set free. Especially if they've been there for a while, right? And they've learned the mannerisms of the native spirit. You got to be really careful. It's a really, really fine line. And you really have to be armed. Not just with spirit, regular church knowledge and the psychiatric portion. You really have to be armed with spiritual insight, because you'll be looking like a fool when you think you got somebody delivered and they not really, right? They not really. I remember me and my sister, and she wasn't, I don't know, but I just say we were super young and we were still calling on the name of Jesus. But this one girl, me and my sister, we was like the spiritual Ghostbusters, right? We had frothing and faking dawn. We had a lot of faith. Faith was strong, and enthusiasm, and probably a whole lot of overzealousness, right? You know, so it was one girl, one of my cousin's friends, right? So she heard, like, you know, when we pray, it's these two girls that when they pray, it's like things happen with their prayers, right? With me and my sister Alicia. And so it's like, look, and plus my cousin is a part of it too. Like, all my family is something. It's like, wait a minute. And my cousin like, well, let me get my two cousins, right? So here we go. But I should have known it was some crap when my cousin decided she wasn't going to go. I'm like, why you call us? You ain't coming. Ain't this your friend? Ain't this your friend? All right, so we out Virginia Beach. And this girl, so we walk into the house and we super, they say, hey, Jeremiah. Dawn said, hey, they saw you in the background. He said, hey, guys, they about to leave out of here for work. She was this tiny girl, like, and I'm like 5'5". So she was probably like, she was like 5'2", 5'3", real tiny, petite girl. But when you walked into her house, you could feel, if you're really spiritually sensitive, you can feel like darkness when you get close to it, right? So the first key that should have warned us not to go was that my cousin, even though she let us know about her friend, that she decided she wasn't gonna go. Like, no, y'all go ahead, because, you know, y'all probably be praying a whole lot more than I do anyway. I don't want to, because the black people don't play with the devil. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't, but that should have been our first clue. No, just, well, sis, if you ain't going, we ain't going neither, right? She's like, y'all got this. Jesus got you. Go ahead, and I'm going to pray for you in the name of Jesus. Go ahead. Let me know what happens. So we go in there. I'm like, Leisha, I don't know about this. So we go in there. It's like, you know what? We bigger than the devil. Like, Jesus got us. We go in here. So we're walking there. First thing, we don't necessarily see, right? And but we walk in. She's like, hey, yeah, your cousin told me you were coming. It was like, okay, walking there, looking like two old church mothers with our Bibles. ready to tear Satan's kingdom down for the glory of the Lord. We're gonna set this girl free. Listen, so we walk in there. She said, I think we just need to pray my house out. We go to pray the house out. Maybe she wasn't talking about her house per se. It was probably her body house that needed to be delivered, right? But the surroundings of the house is kind of an indication what's going on with this house, right? So we walk around. She said, you just walk around and, I'm going to take you through. And so I'm just like, I don't know. We've never been inside her house. never really talked to her before. And like, we so naive, like, what if this girl would have got us in there and like tied us both up? Because demon possessed people, sometimes they got like a strong spirit, and they could like really just, they be tossing people around like rag dolls. And, you know, I'm just like, oh, you know. So she's like, yeah, she said, I just get this feeling sometimes it gets really cold in here, and I be hearing voices, and you know, that should have been an indication. We weren't trained in this yet. Like, hearing voices, clearly you can hear them inside of your house, but if you're hearing them all the time on the inside of you, that's an indication that you might have some uninvited or unwanted guests, right? So we going through praying this girl. Look, we had had our Bibles on across our breasts like this, and we had our oil in the pocket, right? So we got to go through and assess the house first, right? Boy, I tell you, we so ignorant. Going through the house, assessing the situation like we real exorcists and stuff. But I tell you, I did some dumb crap. Walking through the house, okay, who else lives here? Like, I didn't really know the questions to ask. Okay, in here, you got a son? I said, where's your son? Oh, we took him over to his dad's house. I'm like, okay, that may have been a good thing. I don't know. Anybody else here? Nope, it's just me. I'm like, so now my skin is crawling. We're walking through the house. And so we looking, observing everything. And what's crazy is, I think I didn't go into a lot of detail, but I vaguely remember telling y'all this story before. But we walked through the house, and we just, like I said, assessing the situation. And we went upstairs and we looked in every room, and then we came back down. And so we just kind of started talking to her a little bit, right before we prayed out her house, asking her if she had accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as her Savior.
I love you. I'm about to head out.
Okay, son, I love you. Right, because we want to make sure that when we leave, you can control your domain, because Jesus will help you when we go, right? So she's like, yeah, I go to church and everything, but have you accepted him, sister, as your own personal Lord and Savior? She said, well, I mean, I think I have. I said, okay, well, before we get started, I would feel better if we just kind of walk through this, right? We'll just make sure Jesus is on all our side, and then we're going to pray your house out. I be sitting back thinking about some of the stuff I did, y'all, and I just be laughing at myself. But our hearts were really pure, right? Like, we ignorant as all get out, but our hearts is really pure. We want to see the sister set free, right? So we just, Alicia pulled the oil out her pocket. Okay, and I don't want to say her name, right? So we anointed her, then we anointed all of us, right? But here's what's crazy. When we anointed her, and she had walked us through the house, this still baffles me to this day. You know how sometimes things could be sitting in front of your face, but you don't see it. And what we noticed was that when we did, what you looking for, babe? Are those yours right there? What jacket did you have on yesterday? I ain't seen them. I thought those up there. Oh, then it might be upstairs. So, but what we noticed was it was like our eyes were open, and it freaked us out, because when after we anointed ourselves and we anointed her, I began to like do a little prayer and stuff, right? But when we opened our eyes after the prayer, I noticed on her dining room table, like, how do you miss this? Like, on her dining room table, she had all these troll dolls, right? And I'm just like, when I opened my eyes, I saw them, like, and it kind of scared me, because I didn't know. And we've been sitting there that whole time after we kind of went through the house. I'm like, look, my church mother's voice, where did these come from? She said, oh, my troll, they were sitting here. I'm like, no, they won't. She said, yeah, they're all over the house. I'm like, no, they won't. We didn't see them. And I looked at my sister. She was like, Yeah, I didn't see them either. Like, sometimes you can be so, I don't know. And maybe it was done on purpose, spiritual. I still don't really understand why. But she took us through her house again. And she showed us, Uncle Nathaniel, and she showed us, and she said they're all through the house. I'm like, literally, they were. She said, I was like, no, I don't remember seeing troll dolls while walking through here. She said, no, they're all through the house. And I'm like, no, go show us again. And as we got up, it was all on the table. This is crazy. Like, why couldn't we see that? They were all on this coffee table and walking through the house. She had them on the counters, going up the stairs, all different kinds and hanging from different things and all through the rooms. I'm like, and me and my sister, like, did you see these? Like, because we were super spooky spiritual. And if we would have saw the troll dolls, we would not have, like, entered the threshold of her house. Look, we're going there to help her pray out her house. But it's certain things we don't play with. Like, it's like an oxymoron. We're trying to help you pray out your house, but we don't play around with the devil for real. Because if we would have seen it, we would have been out. Like, no, sis, we're gonna pray for you. But okay, give me a little. I'm gonna write it down. Jesus, because Jesus paid it all. Yep. Okay, what else you need? Prayer for your mama, daddy. Anybody? Okay, your baby daddy. All right. Okay. All right, sister. You know what? Come out here. Before we go, Father God, in the name of Jesus, right? I would have did that prayer at the door. And then I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying for you while I'm hightailing it back to my house, to the safety spot, right? But that's what was crazy. And so we, at that point, when it was like our eyes, and this is crazy. It's like, how does that even happen? Like, how do you not even see that? This still baffles us when we talk about it. Like, why couldn't we see that? I don't know if it was on purpose, but we did do a prayer after that. I was real uneasy after that point. And it's like, I couldn't keep my thoughts straight on what to do because I was baffled that we couldn't see this. Like, we walked right in the middle of it and they were all through the house. And like I said, deeply indoctrinated troll dolls. This is of the devil, witchcraft, all this stuff. It just started bombarding my mind and I couldn't think straight. And my sister's like, girl, hurry up so we can go. And so we talking and just back into the door. She's like, well, we're gonna do the prayer or what? I was like, look, we just prayed before we saw these troll dolls. Before we saw these troll dolls, right? And so we're gonna pray that the Father, I don't know, maybe what you're feeling is because of all the troll dolls. She said, I collect them. I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't. Or put them outside. Y'all got a shed or something. Maybe they shouldn't be inside your living quarters. If you having stuff happen, if you feeling like something is talking to you, it's probably the demons speaking through the troll dolls. So you probably should get rid of the we're supposed to be big and bad, casting Satan out. We're just like, you need to get rid of the troll. You need to get rid of the troll dolls. Why are we leaving out of there? I'm like, listen, yo, this demonic setting people free. Life is not for me because I told you I was super, super scary. Like, I wouldn't even stay in my own house because I had this crazy spirit of fear that always attacked me, right? So it was like I had my own apartment but was scared to stay there, even when I had Elijah. But my aunt caught on to it. She said, Pam, girl, listen. You got a whole apartment you paying for. You over here every night trying to trick us, make us feel better like you ain't going to wake us up early in the morning because you got to be out at muster on the base. What you told us is that you're looking out for us. So you don't have to come ring our doorbell 5 o'clock in the morning and wake us up. Your reasoning is that if you're already here, you can just tip out without waking anybody up. She said, a couple days you got us. But we realized you just scared to stay at home by yourself. I was like, I don't know what to do. Look, a grown tail girl, I'm probably like still 19, almost 20 years old, with my own apartment in the military, scared to stay in my own place, right? But that's when she started teaching me about how to use the Psalms at night, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, it literally brought peace over my over my soul, right? So, but it was, I don't know. These are good experiences that I've had. There are a lot of things that I could share, but I know that this is not something to be playing with for real, because there are really people who are dealing with spirits who have been intruding in on their own spirit. All right, babe. And they don't know what to do, right? So simply, with the Psalms, it was just real simple. She said, just let it play, right? She said, get familiar with it. She said, if at any time you feel, and it's just like training your spirit and understanding, that I did a video. I kind of went into detail on it, Jamil. And she actually gave me, that was before like the apps for the Bible and stuff had come out, and she had the Bible on CD, and that's when I started learning about how, how the Psalms, not like the whole Bible, but the Psalms in particular will change the atmosphere of any place. She said, you can just let it play, she said, but really get into it. She said, arm yourself with some of those scriptures, especially the one where it says that the Father will give his beloved sweet sleep, right? I believe that I remember Psalm 3. Hold on. Don't quote me. I ain't really had to use it. Listen, I shared this book with y'all before, but people, not even more than Christians or whatever, people in the occultic realm, or people who are doing all type of spells, what she delivered from the demons, not with our help, she won't, but that we saw the trolls and we was out. Like, so we probably made it worse. We probably got in there and agitated the demons that was in there. We did, listen, we left her with Jesus, right? We did that first. Listen, so we did something. At least we thought we did. That's why I was like, I feel like we need to, but he was probably leading them. Yeah. We just probably brought him to the surface, and whatever rumblings and stuff that she was having, we probably just agitated them. But we was out. We was like, we out, my Jesus. Get rid of the trolls. Right? Left our Bibles and everything. No, I'm joking. We still had our Bibles with us. But even in a lot of magical spells and stuff that I found, they actually use the Psalms because it works, right? Now, what you use it for, that's going to be between you and the Creator, because you going to have to pay for what you did with this stuff. But it's there's this book right here, right? And this is actually a book, although it has the Psalms in it. She writes a lot of books. Her name is Anna Riva. And this is good because it's none about the other stuff. It's strictly just like the Psalms all the way through. But inside of it, with each psalm, she lets you know from her experience what these particular psalms actually do. Like practice, yeah, it's in here, but some of them you do see some ritualistic stuff in here that you add to it. Like I've never really been one for doing like incantations with like a lot of different like candles, because I believe, listen, the more I thought about it, I'm like, people got their own way of doing stuff, right? But I figured, right, and before I even started reading Oahspe, I'm like, everything that I would ever need is already inside of me. Like people doing blood rituals and stuff, extracting blood from other people. I'm like, everybody's a walking blood bag, right? You have your own source of blood. It's encapsulated, right? We were created by the Father's own, what you want to call it? The Father's own ingenuity with using blood and dirt and all of this stuff, but encapsulated perfectly, for righteousness. But people go, it's funny to me now when I watch it and people doing blood rituals and stuff like that. I'm like, bro, you are the source of blood, your own self, right? Y'all hear me saying a lot of videos that like, I'm the light. Why do I need to go light candles? I am the light. My spirit is the light. Like all of these things, it's like they're getting things to do rituals, not realizing all that they need is already in them. on multiple levels, which is why if you understand this, that's why I can just speak. Some people, okay, let me give me a candle, give me a little bit of dirt. I need a little bit of copper over here, like 1/3 cup of water, like this on this day under the new moon. What? That's too much. I'm just walking out and I'm just gonna say it, and it happens, right? So that's what I began to understand. So that's why when I read through these magic books, I'm like, be careful, y'all. Like, really, really be careful. I read it for the information and the understanding and knowledge. But it's good so I can recognize things and I can see people trapped inside of bondages doing things. Yeah, do not play with blood, right? Because it's like it's almost something that can't be undone. Like if you're playing with blood, I just don't do it, right? Learn about it learn about it the natural way, the way the Father created us to learn about it. And as you grow, the life of the flesh is in the blood, all of this stuff, all of this, they pull all of that from what's already inside of us, and they try to separate pieces and have you do different things, when if you would just take the manual road, go through the Creator's school, you wouldn't have to do all of that, because your whole body is full of all of the blood and light that you would ever need, right? You just need to refine your instrument. Your spirit has to learn how to operate your body. You are the ritual, right? You are the magic. I be telling that to people all the time. It's like, you don't really need that. Although I read through it, like I said, to recognize certain things, and it helps me recognize when people have gotten themselves into bondages, and if I've walked the manual way, if I'm the one that's going to help them get free, I need to know how they got in there, right? And so I know, okay, based on this, like now I'm practicing. Okay, so first of all, what possessed you to even do that? Let me just ask you some questions, because did you know what you were playing with? So, but it can be a lot if you're not ready for it and if you don't understand. But yes, definitely don't play around with blood, people, right? Don't. Absolutely not. Which is also why it's a part of it. Not only is it disgusting, right? Having sex with women while they're on their period, it's like a sealing of a blood ritual. Women who, it's disgusting, I know everybody didn't hear it, women taking their menstrual blood and putting it in spaghetti or something, mixing it in, because it's more than just disgusting. It really is. It's literally, it has this binding effect, but we ain't really gonna get into the science of it. But yeah, just don't play around with it. Just learn how to meditate. It's gonna take a while. But if you're diligent, you'll begin to see steady progress over time, right? It's a road that you won't regret that you walk down, right? As you begin to grow, right? Because it'll authorize you to enter levels of, it'll authorize you to enter levels of spirituality. Certain things that, like, I don't know. For instance, say I use this all the time. It'll authorize you at the right time to be able to do certain things, just like driving vehicles, right? I can't give my 6-year-old keys to the car, right? Not only will it kill her, but it could cause a terrible accident and kill multiple people. Now I'm going to be brought up on charges because of neglect. Like, you should have known better. They were not ready. Same thing spiritually. People giving out tools and stuff. If you're not ready, you're going to be held accountable for that, right? But you bring a lot of damage to a lot of people. You can bring devastation. It's the same thing with magical rituals and stuff like that. Not that this was that, but magic books and things like that. People just willy-nilly, freely giving that stuff out because it's some toddlers. I ain't gonna say toddlers, but adolescent teens that are chomping at the bit to get behind the wheel of a car, right? And they think they know how to drive because they know how to drive on Mario Kart, right? But they don't know the rules of the road and how to watch out for other people who are driving who may not be paying attention. So now you have to drive defensively and learn how to drive offensively, like all of those things, the road signs, like what to pay attention to. What about shadows under cars, you know, when you're going through residential neighborhoods, like all of those things, they aren't prepared for that. They think they are, but they're not. Yes, they're selling spells online. But all of these things. So, but we got into all of that because because the Psalms are powerful, they use them for nefarious things and wreak havoc upon other people. But you can take the Psalms and you don't even have to say anything special. You can really just read the Psalms. You can just read it out loud, or you can just read it within yourself, and you may have to read it multiple times, but it literally brings this calming effect. Well, at least it did for me personally, because of the spirit of fear that I was battling, like something fierce. I didn't even, y'all know, like this, me talking in front of people, and I know this kind of like in front of a screen, but me standing in front of people, there was a hard thing. I was like super shy. Like I would not open my mouth, right? Because it was super scary for me. But I remember when my sister-in-law, she retired from the Air Force, and she had this party, and me and my husband, we flew out to Texas and everything. And, she had this nice little shindig retirement party, but she had hired an MC and all of this stuff for her retirement ceremony. But something happened with the MC, and there was nobody to get up there and MC everything, right? And I'm just like, oh, well, whatever, right? I'm minding my own business, right? But because I had been reading the Bible, they didn't know I was struggling with talking in front of people, right? And so by me because remember when I started this, I wasn't going to do it live. And remember, I didn't start it live. I was recording the videos, and then I would do the little editing sometime. Then I got tired of editing because it was just too much. I'm just like, I'm recorded, upload it, and I just watch the feedback, right? Because I was afraid of what people would say and all of this stuff. But then there came a time where it's like, I'll just say it was a voice of the creator. It's like, do it live. Do it live. I'm like, what? People could say stuff to me. It's going to throw me off. I ain't going to be able to focus. Do it live, right? But it was a part of the breaking me out of the shell and learning how to talk and kicking this spirit of fear. When I say I had a spirit of fear, it was a major spirit of fear that I had that would keep me even from talking, you know. But it's helped me to work that out, and it's helped me to even talk in front of people to where I'm even more outgoing. So if somebody called my name in public, I'm like, who's that? Right? I'm like, oh, hey girl, hey. You know, and it's just, it's been like this whole freeing process for me. But they didn't have, the MC didn't show up. The MC had got sick, and they had this whole big thing prepared for her retirement ceremony and stuff. And there was nobody there to MC the event, right? And so like, who gonna get up here? Everybody's like, I don't know. They looked at her parents and nope, we are the parents of you. We're not getting up here. And their other sisters like, nope, absolutely not. And then they looked at my husband, and he was like, no, I ain't fly all this way to come do work. He said, absolutely not. He said, but you can ask my wife though. She real good at talking. I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you do this off? I was like, this is not just family. This is different. These is people I don't know. I said, and they from like all over, right? And he said, babe, you'll be fine. Get it. I was like, no, I'm not. They was like, yeah, that's right. Come on up here. We got a new MC. I was like, no, we don't. We don't have a new MC yet. We don't have a. No, we don't. I'm like, now I'm super embarrassed. And my husband's like, babe, listen, you got this. He said, how do you know this is not going to further help you kick this spirit of fear? I was like, this is not the place. Because if it was, I would have been prepared. I would have had time to prepare for this. He said, you know what? That's the beautiful thing about deliverance. You never know when it's going to happen. Get out there. You'll do great. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so it took his sister coming over there with the little MC mic and get me. You know, I'm trying to play it cool, like I'm not over there chickening out, about to leave out of here. We out in Texas. I'm about to go out here and sit in the car. They said, come on. And she talking while she coming over there. She the one retiring. We got a new MC. She thinks she not ready, but she is. Come on. And so she gave me the mic and everything. So I was like, boy. And then my little joking self just kind of kicked in. I was like, boy, y'all really know how to put people on the spot, because if you hadn't came over here and got me, I was going to be running out the side of the building, go sit in the car, and people started laughing, right? So I'm just like, they thought that was funny? Y'all thought that was funny? I was super serious, right? And they started laughing again. I'm like, oh, snap, right? So it kind of loosened me up a little bit. I was like, oh, you'll be all right. You're doing great. I'm just like, so, and they said, just read off the thing. And so she brought the little thing to me. I was like, well, okay, now that I got a guide, we are here for the retirement ceremony of my dear sister-in-law who just forced this thing upon me, right? But then it was a whole freeing event for me that I was not prepared for. And it's just been stages, right? Now, like you said, it's a process. It's definitely been a process for me. And by me getting up doing this like every day, I realized that it carries over in the rest of my days and how I interact with people and, just different things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, it started with the Psalms and just reading them every day and letting it play in the atmosphere with my CD player. Take it, put it up there, put it on repeat, let it play, set the atmosphere. And I would stay more and more at my house. And I was just like, man, there's definitely like a change here. That overarching spirit of fear. I don't know. It was probably, I grew up watching scary movies, thinking it was funny, Freddy Krueger and Jason, but it did not serve me well when I got older, right? I'm literally thinking Freddy and Jason gonna hop out the closet. I will pull up to my house, leave my brights on, blast them into the house, go in, check my house, every room, cut on every light. I was fine with paying super high power bills because I had to make sure that everything was clear for me and nobody was going to do something crazy to me like I seen in the movies. Yeah, so I got crazy stories, so we should have been going, y'all, but y'all still here listening to me ramble. And I just remember that we did not start this with a prayer, nor did I do my word of adoration, right? Hold on. And y'all saying a bunch of stuff, and I just missed it all. But I got to go here in a few minutes, so we're going to... So your comment, you're talking about the, playing with blood. Are you going to mess around and find out for real? Because I done seen some of... we ain't going to get into that. I had... Oh, my gosh. I had this. This was so disgusting. I had this one boyfriend whose family was, and this was before, well, I knew my husband already, but we hadn't even got together. But I realized that they were doing like some ritualistic stuff, and they were at odds with their dad. And they were, one day I was there and they did something to his food. I'm like, why would you do that? I said, that is your dad, right? It was like, I don't care nothing about that nigga. I'm just like, then why are you even here? I'm like, don't do that. And I like took why would you do? I was like, you can't. I was like, what if something really happened to you? No. And I took it and I put the plate in the trash can. I'm sure they probably remade another plate after I left. But after that, I was like, I cannot be party to this, but they were into that type of stuff. I was like, oh no. And I just really distanced myself. And I prayed for his dad. I don't know what was going on under their roof or whatever that would make their sons, clearly things happen under people's rules, right? That probably they thought in their head they were justified. But I was like, I don't want to be party to this. I'm out of here, right? I just, nope. But it is, they were, it's crazy. I don't even want to get into the details of that. And like I said, I haven't really read it because I know that some brothers use it, and I've been hesitant to use it because the Creator told my family all of it is not of Him. Oh, you talking about the book? And I didn't even have this. I just got it just to see what she said in here about these. But most of the time, I didn't use it. I just used the Bible, right? Because I always kept one on me, and it just got super convenient when the apps came out. But yeah, it's really good. There's nothing, she just really. Matter of fact, I think I read through the table of contents before when I had mentioned it last year, I think it was. And it's just like different prayers. Like you would find, it reminds me of like the prayer books that you would get. Like, I forget the name, but it's like the last name Copeland. There's a bunch of different prayer books that you can get. Say like if you're having issues with anger and stuff, okay, this psalm you read here. It's like that. It really is. It's like that, right? And you don't necessarily have to get these. You can get like any prayer book that's good with pointing that stuff out. But it literally breaks down all the Psalms, and you can pretty much find that in any prayer book, but they always use the Psalms for that. And I am a witness that it works. It really, really does. Ty Lane, hey girl, hey. Is it snowing there? I thought about you yesterday. Somebody said yesterday it was snowing in Florida. But yeah, y'all. So yeah, don't mess around with that stuff. Like, so walk with Creator. All that you need, all what you ever will need, you already have. You already have the instrument for it. Okay. And you don't need to prick yourself, take any kind of fluids from your body, do any of that stuff that people say you need to do. Absolutely not, because that is not the way the Father operates, right? And if you would just walk in purity and grow in understanding, spiritual things will like unfold for you without you having to press buttons, manipulate stuff. It just will. You know, so that's what I got to say about that. Hold on. Jamil said, I think reading it out loud lets the spirits around you know your intentions and the strengths of your confidence. I agree with that. Yeah. All right. So I will walk around. Like, even when Mama have us praying out the house, reading the 91st Psalm out loud, right? I think you put that perfectly. I think reading it out loud lets the spirits around you know your intentions and strengthens your confidence. Dawn said, meditation changed my life. Jamil, she was talking to Jamil. I became more aware of myself. That's true, right? Okay. All right. So I think that's helped me remove. Dawn said it helped her remove interferences that were keeping me stagnant physically and spiritually. That's what Dawn said. Yeah, right. We all got a lot of growing to do, sis. But Francis, shalom. All right, Nazarene is saying that I have to overcome shyness when it comes to speaking and teaching in front of people. I've been that way since a child. Yeah, it is. It's a process, right? You got to do something. You just got to do something to make yourself uncomfortable, to like break yourself out of that habit. And doing this has been like a process of breaking me out of that habit and allowing fear to attack me. And if it could, it probably would have gotten on the inside of me, which is why it was like probably so strong around me all the time. But I'm glad it's just at different phases of my life. I had people who are truly spiritual that kind of helped me in that leg to keep me from being infiltrated, to keep what was outside of me from getting inside of me by me. Each step of the way, they gave me something that strengthened me a little bit more, right? Till it got to the point where my spirit, I may not be the strongest, but I'm super strong. I can feel you around, but I know how to push you out. Like, you will not infiltrate me, right? So the Psalms would definitely help with that. Fasting is another way, water fasting. If you dry fast, be careful. Don't do that too long. But that's another way you can starve the spirits, and not just from food, but that is one of the quickest ways to get rid of spirits from around you. Water fasting, right? You rob them of all the sustenance that they're getting from you, from the foods that you eat, especially if you're still eating meat, because you got a lot of spirits hanging around you. They probably hang around you to eat the sustenance from the food that you're eating. They're fed on the atmospheric portion of it, right? So, which is why you think about it. We read it through the Bible, the sweet smelling incense of these sacrifices. It feeds the spirits, you know. But you need to cut all that out, right? When they know they ain't getting no more food from you, they need to find somewhere else to go. So that will cause them to unhook themselves from you without you having to go to an exorcism. Just by you showing some discipline within yourself, you can help get your own self free, right? It's a few different ways. Our girl, shalom, shalom. She been coming here in and out. Y'all ain't seen it. She just been having me put that. When y'all see me do this, that's her standing right here. She wouldn't put the code in because she got locked out of my iPad. Yeah, so, all right, yeah, so I think that's about it. Oh, that's right, Mom. That's the name of the book, Prayers That Availeth Much. Prayers That Availeth Much. All right, y'all. So I think that's about it. Darn it. I was trying to see your comment, Jamil. I guess when you retract it, it won't let me see it. Or maybe it's a certain time. I was trying to see what you retracted. Okay. Okay. She put, my bad, I read that wrong. Okay, you got this. All right, yeah, I'm talking to Nazarene the scene. Yeah, sometimes you just got to make yourself uncomfortable. Not too much where it goes past, it's like little, you just got to take steps, right? Till you get stronger and stronger where you can just, you definitely want to be in control of it, right? It's like somebody, think about, well, the first thing that comes to me, is like people who are alcoholics, right? At least I learned this from my sister, the one who's a registered nurse, right? Sometimes they get people in a hospital who have like alcohol poisoning, or they deal with people with different addictions, right? And so one of the methods she was explaining to me to get people who are dependent upon alcohol, because they've been doing it for so long. Sometimes she said going cold turkey with that, to where it's like if you're using like a hard narcotic, you can probably go cold turkey from that. And you'll be okay. You just go through the withdrawals for a few days or whatever. But, it'd be better if you're under medical supervision while doing that. But with people who have been addicted to alcohol, what's happened to their body over time, and their liver and everything, what they have to do, they give them doses of alcohol, but lower doses to actually wean them off. So while they're helping them to come off of it, they actually give it to them to wean them off. I was like, well, why would they do that? Because that just seemed backwards to me. She said because they could go into, don't get me wrong, I might say the wrong medical term, so I'm not going to try and use a medical term, but it could cause the organs to go into distress. I'll just say it like that, go into distress, the liver and the kidneys and stuff, because they have been dependent on it so long, and the body has stopped doing certain things. So while they're helping the body to restore and rejuvenate itself, and hopefully they haven't completely killed their liver, they have to even go sometimes as far as getting a transplant. But in helping to set an alcoholic free, they actually have to give them doses of alcohol to just kind of, and it just lessens, it helps to build their, I'm probably saying it wrong, but they just have to wean them off, right? By giving it to them, but not as much. They just decrease the amounts that they normally take till they're off, and they're checking through their systems and all that stuff, so it can become a point where, okay, you don't need any more from this point, and now we're just gonna walk this last step of the way. And like, once you're free, you got to stay free, and you have to also watch your surroundings. Think about your trigger points, things that will cause you to drink. We got to deal with childhood traumas, mental traumas, all these things to get people who have those type of addictions and problems free. It's not just physical. They got a whole bunch of stuff going on with them. So if y'all dealing with people with addictions and stuff, you got to think about that. It's not just that they're addicted to drugs, right? It's a whole host of spiritual elements that absolutely must be dealt with. Jamia, yes. Does prayers that availeth much use Jesus? As far as I know, it does, right? But you can take the Psalms. If you know how to separate truth from error, you can pull out the idols and that's why I said sometimes you can just use the Psalms itself. Right, yeah, like my mom just said, but you can take it and make them your own and use Creator. I agree with that. Or you can just pull them right out the Bible, because they ain't saying Jesus throughout songs. But some people in those prayer books, they'll add their own sampling prayers in there and always end them in the name of Jesus and add it throughout their prayers. You don't have to do that, right? I found out early on, as I was coming out of Christianity and even breaking out of the Hebrew roots movement and stuff, that when I don't really have to end my prayers in anything. If I'm walking in the light of Creator and understand who I am, I could just ask for something and just be done, because I realize it's not in the name. It's actually in the understanding, first of all, of what's going on, right? Understand, because like if your parents leave you in charge of the house, I don't say, go clean up this house in the name of mama and daddy. No, get this house clean. It's the same way you approach your prayers or whatever. You can end it in amen, or some people end it in so be it or whatever. But If you understand what's going on, if you have spiritual understanding, you don't have to end it in anything. I know that might sound like blasphemy to somebody, but you just have to test it to see what I'm talking about, right? I could literally just ask for something and just leave it at that. If I'm asking for anything, or if I'm praying for somebody, I'll just see things happen because I understand spiritual authority, right? And even more so now that I've read through Oahspe, and it's just even been so much better reading through Oahspe. It's just, I don't know. It's just like another level of growth, right? Where children, they're in a house, they're constantly dependent on mom and dad. And once you get out, you realize you don't have to just check in with mom and dad all the time because you're the adult now. You have the authority. You don't have to, it's like, we trust you. Go ahead. Do what you got to do, right? It's that type of thing, right? All right, y'all, so we got to go because I got a paper to work on. Not a paper, but actually contract for the company that's due to the government by 2 p.m. today. So we got to get out of here. Father, we thank you for the ability to share with one another and to interact with one another. We thank you that you would we like the way you weave things together. You weave souls, people, personalities together so we can help one another grow. And we thank you for continue leading and guiding us into all truth, especially while we're trying to get to the bottom of these John Lant plays. Open up the door to us so we can see. And my husband brought out a point yesterday too. He said, and this is crazy because even though I've read through Oahspe all the way, he hasn't, right? And so he'll hear bits and pieces of it, but I'm not even sure that he heard this part. So when I was talking about this yesterday and a few other things that I uncovered, he said, okay, he said, so think about this. He said, what if you all don't actually find the originals? He said, what then? I said, well, I guess we just don't find them. He said, but if you don't, would that be such a bad thing? Maybe not. He said, because what if the creator at this point in time where we're at, what if it doesn't even matter? I'm like, well, and I got what he was saying. I said, I get what you're saying. He said, what if what was then was just meant for then, but what we need now, the creator want to add more to that? I said, you got a good point. I said, Oahspe actually talked about that sometimes. As a matter of fact, that's why the Torah kept being burnt, because people kept going, trying to marry themselves with some of these principles that were only needed for this particular time. He said, the time is past. We're done with that. That is not what you need, right? Take some of them principles. He said, take those principles and apply it here. What is Creator saying now? He said, so I ain't trying to damper your search. He said, but what is Creator saying now? He said, is that really important? Do we really need that? He said, I'm curious too, because I really want to know. He said, but before we get too far off in it, he said, do we really need it? Is it really going to help us? Right? Are we just wasting time? I'm like, darn it, husband, right? Jamil? He always kind of come back and be like, he bring another whole, I'm like, well, darn. I'm like, babe, well, you right. I was like, but I'm like completely vested in this now. Like, I got to see this to the end, my G. He said, okay. He said, and that's fine. He said, don't lose sight of that. Think about what Creator is saying now. What should we be doing now? Right? Take everything we learned, all the good stuff. And he said, it just kind of keep moving forward. I say, you're right. He said, but if you want to keep searching, keep searching. He said, because I'm interested in what you're going to find. If you're going to if y'all going to get this. Because he said he's super excited, but he want us, right? Look, I was just about to say it, Jamia, and then you put the balance and thing up there. He really wants me to stay balanced. He wants all of us to stay balanced. Like, you don't see a lot of them. Y'all don't really talk to him. Jamia got a chance to talk to him for the first time yesterday when we was like voice messaging back and forth. He said, why don't y'all just call each other and quit leaving the voice? I say, you're right. And so he was being funny, talking to Jamia in the background. I had her on speaker, so she actually got to talk to him real time over the phone yesterday. But yeah, so there was a great point, right? A great point. So while we're going through this, I definitely want to make sure like we're not losing sight of what Creator's telling us now, right? And look, he ain't even read through Oahspe all the way. That's one of the things that it brings out and lets us know. That's why we don't need that. Just I'm like, okay, but I'm super excited. I'm really just being nosy at this point. What do they say? So, but yeah. Y'all, that's it. We gotta go. I love y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out, right? I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early. And I'll share in the group here, probably not today, the Creator Gang group. Ray, hey girl, hey. I'll share in there what I've come across. But like I said, I want to make some phone calls first just to kind of, just to make sure I'm on the right track. So, but with that being said, I love y'all. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace. Ruth, hold on. I see a new person in here. I said I was going to go. Yes. That's Atlanta. That's Atlanta you see on my shirt. Hey, girl, hey. I don't know. Sometimes I don't see the people that come in on Facebook because it kind of like come in and go out. But all right, y'all. That's it. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, right and early, 6:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.